35. Creepy occurrences on normal days. Son of a bitch. That says nomral. Well, in the interest of keeping it creepy, that's not the way I saved it. Number 35. Realtor here. I held an open house in a very rough neighborhood in Vancouver. As I showed a 35-ish-year-old woman around the townhouse, I saw a drug addict emerge from an alley. As we went upstairs, I noticed through a window that the naked from the waist down addict was shuffling closer to the open house sign in front of the house. My potential buyer asked me to see the front yard again, though I tried to take her out back as I kinda had a bad feeling about the front door. I was correct. As we opened the door, this mostly nude heroin addict was standing on the door mat. There was a needle sticking out of her bony elbow, and she was scratching and picking at it furiously. My buyer screamed and ran out the door as the addict snapped the needle in half, leaving metal in her arm with blood splitting out. I dialed 911 and watched this Vancouver police paramedic take care of this poor addict. I took down my open house signs and went down to hug my wife and children. It was a very tough and terribly sad day, but creepy. Fucking hell. It was awful. Hello to everyone in the stream chat. Number 34. I don't think this is very creepy, but some of the people I've told this to have told me my house is definitely haunted. Almost every night, my TV turns on by itself at some point between 3 to 5 a.m. I used to think that maybe it was one of my cats who walked across the remote, but I've tried hiding the remote, putting it places where they couldn't get to it, and it still happens. Now I just turn the sound all the way down before I go to bed. The TV will still get turned on, but at least then I won't be waken up by it. I'm sure there's some reasonable explanation for it, but I rather like the idea of having a benign ghost who likes late night TV living in my tiny apartment with me. Number 33. We had quite a large house, shaped like an L, but the L was cut into a hill, so we had a downstairs which was almost underground. It had windows facing out, but a lot was either in the hall or under another floor. I had the room on the bottom part of the L from 13 onwards. My room had 2 doors, one that opened out to a kind of rumpus room, and one to an ensuite. It was always creepy as fuck, but being a skeptic, I dared anything there to do something to me. Grew up fine, but I could never sleep unless the doors were shut. When my parents went away, I'd break the rules and bring my dog in to sleep on the bed. I woke a few times late to see her alert and staring at the door to the rumpus room. Occasionally I'd hear her clawing at the screen on the window, but we have dogs, cats, horses, local bush turkeys, foxes, etc. Figured it was something that that shouldn't have been. My dogs would have gone ballistic. Fast forward 5 years. Bring a new girlfriend to my home to meet my parents. Slept in my old room. She woke up screaming between 12 a.m. and 3 a.m. twice out of the 3 nights we stayed there. I've been with her for 5 years since, and it's only happened in that room. She won't sleep in my house anymore. My parents let my younger sister move into the room about 4 years ago. She asked me recently if I
slap it on some toes.
If I ever slap it on some toes. The stream thanks Mitch Run for becoming a damn, you just shot all of that shit out of the tip jar, Mitch. I appreciate you, Mitch. Thank you for becoming a sponsor, homie. That's pretty dank. I'm gonna hit you with one of these emojis right now. Can you believe it? Wow. All up in the emoji time. As we continue. Well, damn. Thank you, Prelude to Tom Morrow, for that 550. Oh, damn. That's what I'm talking about. My parents let my younger sister move into the room about 4 years ago. She asked me recently if I ever heard scratching on the window late at night. Both of the dogs we had, plus the cat and the horses, were all dead. It being roughly 10 years later, so the scratching is likely independent of the pets, unless the local animals are fucking with us. She also said she can't sleep unless both doors are shut, and she'd often put doorsteps under both doors so she hears if either door is open. She Googled some stuff and decided to sage the room and said she'd had hectic nightmares since and woke up screaming late at night a few times. For reference, she was about 14 when the night terrors happened with my girlfriend, so we never told her. As I said, I'm skeptic, but it's still pretty creepy. Well,
slap it on some toes.
We'll slap it on some toes. Oh, Lexeus. Oh my God, Lexeus. Now that's what I'm talking about. I love it when you go above and beyond. I thank you. I wanna give you guys a quick, quiet round of applause. Keep it down. Keep it down. Oh, shh. Yeah, you guys got it. Yeah, it's a golf clap. Yeah, you guys got it. As we continue up the list of 35 creepy occurrences on normal days, and like I said, when I made that JPEG, I spelled normal correctly, so I don't know what the hell went wrong. But I think it's strange that things that creepy can somehow occur. As we travel up, we arrive at number 32. I live in this old house built around 1900, so I assume I would get haunted. Living on my own for the first time, and I'm a pussy. Oh shit, the chat. The first night it sounded like something was scratching the outside wall. I got so scared I made my friend stay on the phone with me until I fell asleep. So, the next 10-ish months I heard it many times, but now it sounded like someone walked in the attic. Around the walls and under the house. I get scared a lot. I almost convinced myself there was a homeless ghost person living in my roof. Sometimes I had a knife at my bed, and so on. A few weeks ago, the house owner came and was like, "We found mouse poop. We kill. And now it's quiet." and now I probably have a mouse ghost in my house. Well, that story was adorable. At the very least, he doesn't need to worry about his stupid noises anymore. Number 31. I work for a company with multiple sites. The couple who own the business tend to acquire new sites from their connections to the Catholic Church. Talk about scary and creeper. We're taking old church buildings, halls, rectories, really anything they're not using anymore. It wouldn't faze me, but I visit our centers a lot, and I have heard some crazy shit from our workers. One center is in a really old church, which over the years had been different restaurants and local venues. When we acquired it, the building was derelict, and there was a homeless man living in it. Business there always fails after a few years, and to tell you the truth, we're not doing so well ourselves. Everything looks like dark cathedral when you're shutting down, and every sound you hear feels like it's coming from the basement, which has a proper old school crypt vibe. The worst is in an old house we've occupied for years. We're turning the attic into a new room, and two of the workers refused to go up there. Turns out they had an experience with a trapdoor in the middle of the day. One fell flat on her face, covered in cold sweat, after they opened the door. And I wouldn't believe it, but the other worker was there to witness. But the best part of the whole thing? We get these centers exorcised on the regular by a local priest. Well, number 30. The summer after I graduated from high school, I left work early and went to my parents' cabin in northern Michigan. Spent that night at the beach watching the sunset. Once the sun went down, it became nearly pitch black. There was no light pollution out there. I got to my car and started driving down the highway. After about 10 seconds of being at speed, there was an older Tahoe, this was the late 90s, that started riding my ass and flashing its high beams. So I got up to about 60 in a 45. They were still on my ass. I pulled off to the side of the road that my parents' cabin is off of, and they took the same turn. I thought this seemed weird because there's only about 30 to 40 houses on the road, so I went all the way to the end, which is usually a dead end, but leads to maintenance area for a golf course nearby. Truck was still following me. At this point, I was freaking out because I pulled into the house. They'd know where we lived, and they were still following close by. I took a ton of random turns, and the truck kept following every single turn for about 15 minutes. I finally had a chance to make a turn with traffic going through an intersection that gave me a few seconds of a head start, pulled down a side street, went up 100 yards, turned off all my lights, and waited. The truck slowly drove by the perpendicular street and kept going. I booked it home, pulled my car around the side away from the main road, and pulled every curtain. For an 18-year-old, I was scared as hell that night. Number 29. My 3-year-old, who is normally very happy-go-lucky, was extremely concerned the other day. He kept looking around the room, talking about the rhino. Who knows what a 3-year-old might translate as a rhino? This went on for about 20 minutes. He was very concerned and looking around the entire time, so we get to the point where he says the rhino is moving. My wife asks him where the rhino is, and then he says, "He's coming to Daddy." Yeah, I'm Daddy, and my ass is puckered up just a wee bit at that moment. Fast forward about 4 days, and he starts talking about the ghost. My daughter asks my son, where is the ghost? And my son says, he's biting Daddy. What the actual fuck? As we continue up the list of 35 creepy occurrences on normal days, we arrive at number 28. Did you ask this question once and get a bunch of people that work third shifts and love the woods? Nothing creepier than an answer that you guys don't understand. Number 27. I used to live in a small 2-bedroom apartment myself. The lounge was right outside my bedroom. One night, I woke up and I could hear something moving outside. I got up to check, and the pedestal fan that was out there was slowly oscillating back and forth. At the time, I convinced myself it was some sort of electrical fault, as it was plugged into a board that turned all of the sockets off when I turned the main switch off, which was the TV. I went back to bed and ended up getting back to sleep. It was a few days later that I realized that the fan had never been set to oscillate the whole time I owned it. I'm glad I didn't figure that out that same night. Bing bong. Number 26. My sophomore year in college, I ran into this guy that was a year younger than me. Let's call him Mitch. My man, Mitch. Mitch and I were acquaintances that ran in the same circles. He was a nice guy, smart and quiet. At parties, he would fold these really cool 3D shapes in the corner instead of interacting. He would always just watch everybody. Anyway, I ran into him at a bus stop, and I stopped to say hello. We had an awkward chat about our majors, his being physics, mine being chemistry. Chemical engineering. Intriguing. I asked if he had any contact with the mutual friend that went into the army. He said yes, and I said, great, could you pass him my number? He opened his wallet and pulled out a piece of paper. The only thing in there, it had my name, university address, and phone number. What the fuck? Now that's creepy, dude. Now that's creepy, Mitch. What do you have to say for yourself, Mitch? Mitch says this isn't me. I swear. Mitch swears to a lot of things. But not being creepy with women, I doubt, is one of them. As we travel up the list of 35 creepy occurrences on normal days, we arrive at number 25. Years ago, when I was a senior in high school, I had a day where I wasn't feeling too great. So I decided, as I occasionally did, to skip out on my last 2 classes and head home. That meant no school buses, obviously, so I would just walk the 3 miles home. Before the age of computer cell phones, this was a pretty long, boring hike to take, so I decided to take a shortcut through some small, wooded trail along a creek. Eventually, I came across a dead cat lying in the middle of the trail, and as I walked around it, I noticed another dead cat to my left. Looking to my right, sure enough, there was another. Creeped out, I looked behind me and noticed two more, and yet another two in front of me. They were all laid out in a giant circle with one in the middle, almost like a half-assed pentagram. I sped up the pace and got the hell out of there. Never took that trail again, thinking back to a really weird thing is that there was no visible damage to any of the cats. No blood or cuts. Just dead. Okay. Number 24. At the time, my husband and I were living on another continent from his mother, and he hadn't spoken to her in a month. We woke up absolutely panicked in the middle of the night after having a dream about his deceased grandmother. He was supposed to help her fight some man and get out of his mom's basement, but the man was too strong and he couldn't help. He called his mom at 3 a.m., and he is not the type of person to call his mom in the middle of the night to find out that his mom had just finished a seance in her basement because she'd been having trouble with grandma's spirit. Up until that moment, I did not believe in ghosts. I want to believe. Hell no. Number 23. While cutting lawns along a bike trail, my coworker and I found a mostly decayed, severed from the knee down leg. The cops were called, they questioned us, and we never found out any more about what happened. Well, damn. Well, damn. Michael Davis, don't get too up your own ass there, buddy. The world's full of too many things for you to claim that you have a deep understanding of most of them. You don't know shit, buddy. And the second that you come to terms with that will be the second that you can actually start living. Don't be a little Rick and Morty fan, you cuck bitch. Back in the day, people swore that people would never fly. And look at the planes in the sky. Some people don't believe in germs because they can't see them without a microscope. I'm sure if we were to jump 10 years in the future, you would be so blown away that you would consider the shit going down to be magic. But what is any sufficiently advanced technology indistinguishable from? Number 22. The summer after high school, I worked a grocery store in the small town I grew up in. I was unfortunate enough to get moved to a stocking position, which meant coming at 9 p.m. and placing groceries onto shelves every night until 8 a.m. There was only me and one other woman who worked that shift. One night, we were on break around 4 a.m. A good portion of the aisles had been stocked. As we sat and drank our coffee and conversed, the sound of glass shattering shook us alert. The conversation immediately stopped, and we stared at each other. Did you hear that? Yeah, it sounded like glass breaking. We sat for a few more moments listening. The front of the store was a large glass window, and one of them could have been smashed, and someone violently and potentially serial killerish could gain access to the grocery store. This was our concern. I stepped out of the break room and looked for any sign of an intruder. It was a big store, so they really could have been anywhere. I was relieved to find that they were not. However, right outside the break room, I slowly made my way to the front of the store. All of the windows were intact. What the hell broke then? I started walking down the length of the store, scanning each aisle for a sign of an intruder or anything that could have caused the sound of breaking glass. Lying in the middle of the aisle, a glass bottle of ketchup. The bottle was shattered and the ketchup was splattered everywhere. My first thought was it fell off the shelf. However, I quickly realized that since it was in a glass container, it would have been stocked onto the bottom shelf. Sure enough, the other bottles on the bottom shelf were in slight disarray as well. But how did a bottle that was stored an inch above the floor fall with such a velocity to shatter and splatter? Everything pointed to it being thrown. By this time, my coworker had found me investigating the broken bottle. We agreed that gravity could not have been the culprit. If it were, the bottle would have simply fallen and stayed within inches of where it fell, not land 3 feet away with enough impact to shatter the bottle and send ketchup everywhere. The answer was clear. Ghosts. The grocery store must have been built on Native American burial ground, or the site of some blood-soaked and field of war. Now, an angry ketchup-flinging ectoplasmic emanation was lashing out at the living, jealous and hungry for our life energy and our ability to have tasty condiments atop the burgers or, if you're that kind of person, mac and cheese. I bent down and looked at the shelf more closely. I reached my hand behind the bottles, and that's when I felt it. Biscuits. It was biscuits. Someone had thrown a container of refrigerated biscuits behind the ketchup. It had soured, built up pressure, and exploded. The explosion was enough to fling the bottle off the shelf. So a warning to all of you. Don't be a dick and put a can of biscuits behind non-refrigerated products at a grocery store. Looks like everybody in the stream just got an idea for how to be an asshole. In case the biscuits that this guy's talking about aren't clear, we're talking about your biscuits that you would get in like a frozen food area where, it's like cinnamon roll type, or like the fluff up biscuits that you would put in the oven. They usually come in like a little tube, like a Pillsbury tube. I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of a visual aid here. Type in Pillsbury biscuits. You've seen these things, not like that, not in a box. Oh my god, they come in a little tube like that. But if they're not refrigerated, then naturally, the pressure will make them like pop open when you've opened them, and they open with a little bit of pressure. Somebody put that behind some stuff, calls to stir. Don't do that. But if you wanted to, I guess you know how to do it now. The story has made you wiser. A little bit creepy. Number 21. I work in a supermarket, early shift. Part of my job is changing the shelf labels, and the price changes each day. Just this Wednesday, gone, I was putting new labels on a shelf of hand soap when, about 2 feet along the shelf, from me, a bottle shot off and landed in the middle of the aisle. I looked along the aisle at my colleague, and she just shrugs her shoulders and says, "It happens all the time." I've never directly witnessed anything else, but being one of the first on the shop floor each day, I'm now questioning all the items that I see sitting in the aisles first thing and guessing I can't blame untidy customers for all of them. What the fuck you mean something just shot off the shelf, though? What the bing bong? Number 20. 18 years old, and first time ever operating a dozer with an open air cab and roll cage. Was clearing some trees out of a waterway on a farm. All of a sudden I'm knocked out. I come to, and blood is running down my face and into my lap. The dozer pushing up against a tree, just spinning tracks. My neck and my head hurt. I thought I'd been shot. No idea. Nobody's around me. Wasn't told how to shut off the dozer as it was an older 6C. You don't just turn the key off. Called my dad. He runs over and pulls the idle bar all the way down and shuts it off. We're both clueless as to what happened, and he sees a branch behind my head that I must have drove through and pushed it forward pretty far, and it snapped back into the cab and hit me in the forehead. I never saw it coming. That tree hit that motherfucker like a bat. Right in the face balls. The trees are alive. Number 19. This happened quite a few years ago when I was at university. My friends and I were living on a ground floor flat, and my room was at the front of the building. Outside my window was the front garden. My boyfriend at the time and I had literally just finished having sex, and I put my head on the pillow and glanced to my right, which is where the window was. There was a gap between the curtain and the window, and I was met with a pair of eyes watching me. The peeper and I both had the instinct to look away, then quickly look back. At this point, I shouted to my ex that there was someone watching us from outside. He jumped, opened the window, and shouted various amusing warnings. He could see that the grass was disturbed, so that someone had been there, and by the looks of it, more than once. From further inspection the next morning, we found out that he had jumped the small hedge and exited through my neighbor's garden. I told my friends and was pretty freaked out by the whole event. However, my lovely friends decided to walk by my flat late the next night and bang on the window and make sex noises. I almost shat myself. Nothing like a bit of insensitivity among friends. Ho ho. Ha ha. Number 18. Our house was on a corner, and in lieu of a backyard, had a side yard with a small deck. The deck wrapped around the back, and the dining room had patio doors that led out to the back, and we would have barbecues and such back there. When I was about 14, we only had one desktop computer and one laptop for the family. My brother and I would fight over the desktop. That's when Diablo 2 was installed. So I would use the laptop to write music. On one particular night, my brother had a friend over, and they were upstairs doing whatever, and I was in the dining room on the laptop. As I wrapped up my writing, I didn't pay much attention to my surroundings. I heard a knock on the patio door, which startled me. I looked up, expecting my brother or his friend. The basement had a door that led to the back deck as well. Standing at the door and waving was a person. I could not tell the sex or age, waving and wearing a Halloween pig mask. Thinking it was my brother or his friend, I mouthed, "Good one," and gave the person the finger, and they walked away. As soon as they left, I went downstairs to give them shit, and to my surprise and dismay, they were both sitting on the couch playing PlayStation. They swore up and down that it was neither of them, and there was no way that one of them could have gotten downstairs and unmasked before getting on the couch. To this day, I have no idea who it was that knocked and waved. Well, damn. Number 17. Not creepy, but definitely frightening. I used to manage a small family-owned retail store. It was the 4th of July, and the owner, of course, took the day off and dropped the responsibility on me. We had 2 stock boys bringing up some items on the forklift when I hear banshee screaming coming from the outside of the storefront. One of them comes flying through the front door on one leg, spewing profanity before collapsing on the ground. I look down and see his ankle. His actual ankle, like the bone. Blood is going everywhere. Dude was riding tandem on the forklift, a giant safety no-no, when the driver took a hard turn and sent the kid off the side, running over his foot. The driver screeched to a halt, thought he'd stopped on the kid's foot. He didn't, so he popped the forklift in reverse and ran over the foot again. Anyway, I learned that day I keep my cool in emergency situations. I grabbed and elevated the kid's foot, instructed someone to call 911 and another person to get towels to try and stop the bleeding. I held his foot up until the EMTs came. They managed to save the kid's foot, but he had a battle ahead of him. His foot went necrotic, and he went septic. But he survived. I don't work there anymore. There were a lot of unsafe practices going on, and the owners didn't treat their employees very well. I left about 3 years ago, and surprise, surprise, they shut down about a year and a half later. Number 16. I worked from 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. at a gas station in one of the nicer cities around here, and I had a gentleman look me in the eyes and ask if I'm enjoying my last day on Earth? Walked away before I could answer. Holy shit.
Titty sprinkles.
Prelude to Tom Morrow donates $5.50 again. My man. Saying titty sprinkles. Tom Morrow, the hero of today's stream. I can't get enough of your love, Tom Morrow. Daron Thomas just subscribed. If it isn't Sean K, special thanks to Sean K, who made a new microphone happen that I'll be using with the new rig when I get it up and running. As we continue the list of 35 creepy occurrences on normal days, we arrive at number 15. We're starting to make some progress here. Hearing music that isn't actually playing from the store speakers, quiet, but there. Given the shit I was dealing with at the time, I'm fine writing it off as a hallucination or delusion. Number 14. A senior partner at the firm hitting on the receptionist. She's younger than his kids. The thing is, she's often too naive to notice, and says that he's just treating her like her uncle would, and just being friendly. I don't tell her that I've overheard him talking about jerking one out to the thought of her. I know that she's naive because she's a friend I know pretty well, and I used to be her. I was the young, naive one, coming out of the awkward teenage phase, apparently vulnerable to being preyed upon by people in positions of power, including at work, because I was too trusting and eager to please. I'm not in a position of power, and I certainly don't want to be creepy with anybody. But, I hope that some girl's naivety will find its way to me. Number 13. A homeless guy tried to light my office on fire once. Pretty scary, but the cops rushed out and got him. Number 12. When I was 17 and worked in a retail as a cashier, I had a very old couple come through my line buying a wok. The husband, who is at least 85, started making conversation with me about work. No, about the wok. He asked if I liked Chinese food. Yeah, I like Chinese. Do you want to go out with me to get some Chinese? He winks at me. No, sir. Oh, well. He looks a bit disappointed and turns to look at his wife, who is on the phone with someone. Would you at least like to come home with me and live in my basement? No. The rest of the transaction took place in terrified silence. His wife never said a word. I wonder to this day if he was trying to joke, because he sounded so sincere, or if he was suffering from dementia or something else that made him not realize how creepy that sounds to someone young enough to be your great-grandchild. Number 11. I'm smarely fall. Fuck me. The stream thanks Kyle Willard for his $1 donation. Getting a bit gangster in the stream chat, aren't we? Getting a bit spooky. Kyle Willard. Oh, damn, baby. Oh no, it's gonna hit the stuff out of it. Oh, okay, good. Good. The contents of the tip jar are a bit weighted at this point, and that's good. That's good. As we continue, number 11. I am fairly small for a guy. I stand at around 5'5", and the most I've ever weighed was 150 pounds. About 6 or 7 years ago, I didn't have my license despite being far old enough to drive. But a good buddy of mine wanted to hang out. He too did not have a way of transportation. Really? You don't have a single thing to drink here, dude. What's this? No, that's old. What's this? Let's take a chance. Ugh, flat. Jesus. He too did not have a way of transportation, so we decided to both walk towards one another and meet in the middle. Aw, how gay. We would both be walking around 5 miles. It was 3 a.m. on a cold winter morning, and I was wearing a black jacket with my hood up. About 2 miles into my hike along the main road, a car pulled into a parking spot of the home I was passing. Just a few feet behind me, he wasn't entirely into the driveway, almost halfway hanging out into the road. I half expected it was just a kind stranger wanting to give me a ride, but I wasn't about to take any rides from anybody. I kept pacing forward and ignored the car behind me, expecting them to roll down a window and shout at me. It didn't happen. The car just sat at the edge of the driveway, running, but completely dark inside, to the point that I could only barely make out the figure of a large man. I don't typically get frightened much, but something in the air made me tense up and my heart kind of dropped to my stomach. I stopped and turned to look at the car. I had a feeling that the person driving was watching me intently. Oh, speaking of creepy, looks like Chris Chan is live. Just gonna open that really quick. Just gonna
You know what really grinds my gears? The new South Park game is not about me. It's like they don't care about me anymore.
If there's not a Loch Ness Monster reference in the new South Park game, I will slap myself in the fucking face. Sexy
The
Jessica
donation
E.
was coming from inside the stream, too spoopy for me.
The donation is coming from inside the stream. Well done, Jessica E. Someone put thought into that. You know I appreciate you. Send me a Snapchat and I'll thank you properly. I'm really going to try to make some progress on this list. I feel like I'm not getting anything done. Loch Ness, you know you're my man. You know I appreciate both of you. Let's kick this list square in the balls. Aw, yeah, baby. I don't typically get frightened that much, but something in the air made me tense up and my heart kind of dropped to my stomach. I stopped and turned to look at the car, I had a feeling that the person driving was watching me intently. The figure in the car was definitely facing me. I could see the reflection from his dash bouncing off of his eyes. I stared back. I figured he was about to yell out to me, but he just quietly, in a strangely menacing way that I have only ever seen in movies play out. I kinda did a wave at the figure, letting him know I saw him, and waited for some type of communication in return. He didn't budge, just stared intently. I returned to pacing away, slightly brisker. After just a few moments, I could hear the car slowly roll in reverse, so I turned to face it, but kept pacing backwards. The car kept creeping slowly. I pulled down my hood and stood still again, waiting for him to pass me, but instead the man slowed to a stop beside me. The passenger side window rolled down, and the man and I met eyes. No words were exchanged, and before I could even get out a hello, the man grimaced and accelerated away at a decent pace, almost as if he was disappointed by what he had seen. It doesn't seem like much from how it reads, but I'll never forget how tense that interaction was for me. I've not felt anything like that since. I'm sure Stripes feels like that when she leaves her room to go to the kitchen. Just trying to open the fridge, you know, just trying to see what kind of Twinkies are in there. Number 10. New Year's Day, 1995. I was in the middle of third year university, and a bunch of friends had come down to visit me and my roommate for the festivities. We were all pretty hungover from drinking the night before, and went out for the usual nice day out, a bit chilly, I don't feel so good, post-greasy breakfast hungover stroll around the neighborhood. Two of these friends were twin brothers. One of them we hung out with all the time. The other we just met for the first time. He was pretty normal the night before, joining in on the fun, but on this day, we were all hanging around the local basketball court shooting hoops and with an old basketball we'd found in the grass. This twin brother kept following me around all over the place with the creepiest grin I'd ever seen in my life, staring right into the nether regions of my soul the whole time. I'd back away and join the group again, and he'd keep following me around. When we were walking back to the apartment, it was just me and him walking down the sidewalk behind the group, and he moved over in front of me, stared at me with that creepy look again, and fell down to his knees as if to worship me or something. I didn't know what to do. Hey, buddy, are you all right? We're headed back now, right? And so on. He wouldn't say anything. He'd just be there on his knees looking up at me with a clenched fist and squinted eyes as if he were looking directly into the sun or something. Later that day, my roomie said he was tripping balls, so I thought nothing of it and moved on with my life. A few weeks later, we get a phone call from the twin brother we usually hang out with, and it turned out that his other twin brother went over to his aunt's place with a knife and stabbed her 14 times. This is a motherfucking evil twin story. On Reddit, what the fuck? She didn't die. What? The twin stabbed the aunt 14 times. She didn't die. But you know, still pretty bad. He had even called the police before going because he knew he was going to do it, but he couldn't stop himself from doing it. because, you know, the voices and so on. The ensuing court cases widely covered in the media, as this was a relatively smaller community where this sort of thing doesn't happen on a regular basis. I was reading one of the articles, and one of the testimonies was his twin brother was severely schizophrenic and was hearing voices in his head. He believed to his very bones that his aunt was the devil and that he had been commanded by God to go kill her. So who was this God that told him to go kill her? Well, as the newspaper article described, it was the guy in a group he hung out with.
A stream without the fat man is a stream that's less fat.
I like to think that this stream is adequately sized. But the stream thanks Fat Man for his $10 don't nizzle whizzle. Indeed. We thank you, Fat Man. As we continue. So who was this God that told him to go kill her? The newspaper article described it was a guy in the group he hung out with on New Year's Day. Didn't take me long to realize that he was talking about me. This was 22 years ago. I know for a fact it was a mental illness, but just knowing that I had somehow commanded him to go kill his aunt stays with me to this day. He goes on to say, no, the cops never did question me, and I'm actually now wondering why not. It makes sense that they would. Right? Number 9. Responded to a welfare check. What's that, you ask? Sometimes old people get old, and if people don't hear from them from a long enough time, people assume they're dead, so you gotta go check them. But welfare isn't what we normally call that. We call it a wellness check. So you already know this probably ain't in America, where shit makes sense. And that's the real creepy aspect of this list, of that people are all around you on the internet and you don't know where they're really from. You think they're in the good old US of A dealing with Trump and all his bullshit, but
Who's winning a fight? Cream pie or cookie butt?
look at he knocked 2 of them out. Well done, Fat Man. We appreciate you and that 420 donation. And most people think I wouldn't break the atmosphere by clicking certain buttons in the middle of a stream like this, and they'd be wrong.
Smoke weed every day.
That's pretty dank. Number 9. Responded to a welfare check for an elderly couple, or woman, who hadn't been seen in a few days. Found her hanged in a dirt basement wearing her wedding dress. Still swaying slightly, her tongue and eyes bulged from her face, and her neck was stretched out. It was fucking creepy. An elderly woman in her wedding dress, she hung herself. You have to wonder why she did it in the wedding dress, dude. Was that the last time she felt pretty? Did she have some kind of mock ceremony? Did her husband die and now she feels like nothing without him? In her wedding dress. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. That's just sad. I thought this, but I'd never write it. That's kind of rude. Come on, guys. At least she still fit in her wedding dress. I was thinking that'd be an accomplishment for most women after a while, is to still be able to fit in a damn dress, but Oh my god. Welcome to the Kyle list, ladies and gentlemen. Nat Brat says that's creepy as fuck. Number 8. There is currently a beaver living in my place of business. We can't get it out, so we just learned to live with it. I now work with a beaver. Ooh, so spooky. Number 7. I used to work at a tanning salon, and one day, while I was alone, my God. There's a demon inside me, it's creepy. Number 7. I used to work at a tanning salon, and one day, while I was working alone during my early morning shift, I heard what sounded like a full-grown man running down the hallway. I looked, and there was nothing. Just me. No machines were on yet. No one else was in the building. I sat in the office until my coworkers arrived. Man. I like that 18 is too old for fat man. Oh my God, it says underage. What the fuck? There's an emoji that is called underage? What the fuck? I had nothing to do with that. That is genuinely disgusting that they named it that. It could have been named over 18 or anything like that, but it's named over underage. Number 6. Right after the Virginia Tech shooting, my old office got an anonymous death threat in the mail, made up of cut-up magazine letters calling out the name of the office and its owners. They called the police and closed the office for a couple of days. Turned out to be from an employee who had just been fired for a number of reasons. I never found out what happened to her. Somebody said I'm going to take jail for 200 points. As we finish this list of 35 creepy occurrences on normal days, we arrive at number 5. I was playing a PC game called Black and White. It's not a horror game. Shortly after it came out, it was late at night, and suddenly I hear my speakers whisper my name. There was no reason for it. Nothing happened on screen, just my computer whispering my name. It scared the crap out of me. Years later, I found out they had recorded common names in one of the game files, and if the name on your profile matched a name that they had recorded, it would have a small chance to randomly play while you were playing. Number 4. Was out at lunch in Midtown Atlanta with some coworkers. We sat on the patio, and there are some high-rise condos right across the street. Some guy jumped from his 40th floor balcony and splattered all over the roof of someone's Jetta. Everything went everywhere. The noise was pretty memorable as well. We noped out of there before ordering. It was a super silent ride back to work. One of my coworkers said he won't sit out on patios anymore when eating. Viral marketing. As we continue up the list, we arrive at number 3. I am a teacher of adult students, and one student of mine is kind of intense and creepy. I wish I had someone to teach me the way I can teach you. One day that comment will make sense, and it'll be a day that you wish never came. Actually, she's based at another school, but specifically started attending classes at my school after meeting me. When I first started, she kept giving me welcoming presents, as I was new to the country. Just simple things like food, postcards, books, which was nice as an idea, but it seemed a little excessive. She added me on social media and then got upset that I didn't reply to her constant messages. If only big titty ladies was constantly messaging me on Snapchat, you know what I'm talking about? I'd reply to you, maybe. I told her that I don't really use social media. Who does, you know? Anyway, I didn't see her for a few months and figured that she'd just gone back to her old school or stopped studying or whatever, and was relieved that she'd clearly gotten bored of me. But then last week, she comes in and gives me an envelope full of photos of me during lessons that she'd taken without me knowing. I was a little weirded out, to say the least. Somebody else says, "Sounds like you got yourself a budding stalker." They grow up so fast. And these are the photos I took from behind, the purest and prettiest pictures you'll find. There's you in the classroom, and you in the car, and you in the foreground, and you from afar. And this is the model I made from my hair, the whitest of weddings, where everyone's there. They're happy for us, for they know that it's true. A 1 and a 1 makes a wonderful 2. And that's your address that I found on the net. The place where you sleep that I'll never forget. I'll always be there when you need me about. And that's when I knew it was time to move out. Number 2. I work in a residential environment as a service technician. I go to houses and apartments and condos to do my thing. I was working in one particular condo building with over 70 floors and about 8 elevators. The elevators are in 2 groups of 4 with 2 giant elevator shafts. Just picture one giant square that is the lobby and 2 smaller rectangles in the room that are the elevator shafts. The 2 shafts are identical looking. This is relevant because it's easy to get disoriented as to which direction you are facing when you exit an elevator. Anyway, after doing a bit of work on the 65th floor unit, I realize I have to go to the parking level 1 to a utility room. No big deal. I hop on the elevator and press P1 and take a lonely ride down about 60 plus floors. I reach P1, and when the elevator door opens, I hear weeping. I'm immediately worried for whoever is crying. So, I start to pinpoint where the noise is coming from. It's a child crying. And since all the walls in the area are bare and concrete, the sound is echoing and seems to be coming from everywhere. Panic didn't set in until I had searched 4 corners of the square room and hadn't found anyone. Now, I'm no mathematician, but I'm pretty sure 4 corners is all of them, so my mind starts racing. I decide to nope out and head back to the door that would eventually lead me to the utility room that I was supposed to be working in, which I had already passed earlier on my search. I round the corner, and there I found the source of the noise. It's a little girl with straight black hair, crouched down, sobbing into her knees facing the corner. I don't know why I didn't see her before, because I already checked that corner. So either I am mistaken, or she heard me get off the elevator and was actively moving away from me. For a moment I considered running, because that shit looked like it was straight out of The Ring, but the moment of nonsense subsided and I asked her what was wrong. Turns out she was just lost and scared, so I escorted her back to the concierge desk so security could help her back to her room. Nothing really creepy after the fact, but for a moment I thought she would turn around with no face or something. Little girl with black hair don't know how scary she is, bitch. Well, she should have, you know what I mean? Little girls with black gowns should go around just scaring niggas for the hell of it, wearing a white gown and all kind of shit like this. Somebody go and blast them in the face, pull out a gun and just be like, oh my God, that was a real little girl. You go to jail, nigga. And then in her pocket, she has like a note that says, pranked ya. It was just a prank. No, I'm in jail for life. You shot that little girl. How scary as fuck, man. What the fuck you want me to do? I hope you enjoyed this random middle of the day list. Maybe you didn't, and I guess I can't please anybody. Someday I'll find a way to please people. Until then, I guess I'll just try to please myself. Here's hoping peepees get big and titties get nice and bouncy for Kai. And otherwise, I'll be right here when you need me. I'd like to take the time, as usual, to thank my patrons for doing what they do. They're doing God's work, and they're supporting me, helping me, bing bong. I want to thank my sponsors, who I literally just need to just make a new list of, because it looks like today we had Mitch and Lexeus become sponsors as well. So man, I'm going to have to make this actually look good as opposed to just throwing people's names up on there with their user pictures. Hilarious. But oh damn. I want to thank you for being here. And I want to thank Fat Man for donating. Bing bong. Bing bong. As we travel up and finish the list of 35 creepy occurrences, we arrive at number 1. Every few months in a department with over 20 women, we'd all come in nearly identical outfits. It was odd. We were all ages and races and styles, but there'd be a day where everyone would show up in a black skirt and a red blouse. A few months later, everyone in brown slacks and a cream-colored dress shirt. A few months later, a gray skirt and a black sweater. We could never figure out the trigger. TV show character looking fly in that outfit the night before, a visitor to a building who appeared polished? Nothing. It always creeped me out, as it would seem to represent some sort of group thinking or collective consciousness working on inside of us. Ooh, if Gael could open up and tell you the things about the simulation you're all a part of, your minds would be blown. But why would I ruin the big surprise that you get at the end of your life? If you're lucky. I hope you all have a fantastic day. And you'll be getting more of me soon enough. What's going on today? Goodbye. Thank you again, Lexeus. You're amazing. Yeah, I should shut this down. Michael Davis says, you think I'm not on to the conspiracy, Kyle? How do you think I figured out Hannah is Hannah backwards? That's one of her closely guarded secrets, I'm sure. Guys, I would love to be playing South Park right now, but I think it makes more sense that I wait until late tomorrow. When I get the computer, I build the computer. Well, not get the computer, but get the tools that I need to build the computer, because I need the bracket mount for the CPU cooler. Then I'll just be able to download South Park for free. Plus, I think it'll be better if I play it on the computer, because then, you know, we'll have like the little pop-ups of people subscribing and things like that. And it can be a real interactive experience as opposed to if I were to do it on the PS4. Which I don't like so much as far as the stream atmosphere. It's obviously trumped by the computer, so we'll see where that goes tomorrow. I'm eager to play that with you all. Could even do it all night or something. A veritable Kyle sleepover. If some of you will be up at that time. But probably not you guys. Mainly because, you know, this is like an early in the day stream, and if I'd be doing it at night, then I'm sorry. We'll figure out something. We'll figure out a compromise. Candy Stripe says, okay. See you guys later. Bye, bye, bye.